So once again, let us continue our discussion of Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces. Once again, my strong recommendation is first, please watch Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. And then after that, you can watch Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, which can be found in a number of places, one of which being as a supplement that is part of this wonderful Criterion Collection release, which is what I have here on the table for Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. So that's my strong suggestion again for everyone, for anyone and everyone who may be on your own Twin Peaks journey. And in particular, especially for those who are embarking upon this Twin Peaks journey for the first time. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the discussion of Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces. So let's begin with the opening sequence, or the title sequence, which begins the whole affair, as it were. And we have a number of shots that are seen with some text that is superimposed over these shots. And the text is in white, in the very familiar Twin Peaks type of text. And it announces, in terms of the text, what you are about to see are missing pieces, deleted or extended scenes from Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. And so this is a very bold and very important announcement or proclamation, because it indeed announces what it is we are about to see, which is the missing pieces, deleted or extended scenes from Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. And indeed, perhaps there might be some instances where we might see not just deleted scenes or not just extended scenes, but in fact also alternate takes on what we had seen or what we do see in the final film, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. But we'll talk about that when we get there. In the meantime, yes, the opening sequence, or this title sequence, is text that is not a starring so-and-so or this actor or that actor, but rather a simple yet profound proclamation or announcement that what it is we are about to see are missing pieces, deleted or extended scenes from Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. And a number of the shots that we see, I think, are very significant as well. We see a slow close-up zoom, not zoom, but so close-up in the school hall, and then closing into the trophy case, kind of very famous sweeping shot into the picture, the now iconic picture of Laura Palmer. And then it goes into the woods, and then it goes into what we is often referred to as, the red curtained room with the white and black zigzag design on the floor, and a kind of camera that glides over it. And it's often sometimes referred to as the Black Lodge, perhaps, but it's this very iconic space. And so over these shots, as they fade into each other, we have this text. And so this is a kind of interesting motif or interesting engagement. We don't hear anything on the soundtrack except for this sort of hum or wind-like noise. There's no music. There's none of the very famous theme of Twin Peaks that would open, say, one of the episodes of the series, or there's none of the Badalamenti music that we might have heard in, say, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, the opening titles in that film, as we recall, grand, beautiful, haunting music. But we have a type of wind or a hum, something that is maybe kind of a hollowed out echo of something, or perhaps something that is with substance and inviting. I love this very much. In fact, it is the very embodiment of what what I really believe is the very, I would say, is the very important thesis point of a type of reading of David Lynch works as a whole, or perhaps Twin Peaks as being an example. That being the hole in the donut, everything and nothing, everything that is absolute and nothing, things that are and aren't. And this type of tension between existence and non-existence is, I think, at the very heart and center of Twin Peaks, Mark Frost and David Lynch work, Twin Peaks. And I think is at the very heart and center of many other works by David Lynch. And indeed, I think the use of sound, as shown elsewhere, but this being an example, this title sequence or opening sequence of what we now understand to be the Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces. This sound is very important because it has this hollow, almost quote unquote empty sound, but we know it's far from empty. And so therefore it's empty and not empty. It's full and empty at the same time. In other words, it is everything and nothing at the same time. We get that wrapped into the sound that we see introducing this full-bodied work that is the missing pieces. So we're about to get something that is full of substance, but it seems to be introduced to us in a way that seems to suggest a hollow echo emptiness. But we understand that this paradox continues on cyclically because we understand might have the perception of being empty is in fact far from being empty. I love that. I love that. And we get it here wrapped in this use of sound. At least that's how I feel when I see this. So anyway, and then this type of introduction into the world of Twin Peaks, a type of title sequence, as it were. It's an interesting title sequence in that it feels like something that is new and fresh and inventive in the sense that this is a title sequence or an arrangement of scenes that make up a quote-unquote title sequence that we have not seen in Twin Peaks up to now, right? For the most part. I mean, we've seen the title sequence of Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. We've also seen the title sequences that open the series episodes. But we have never seen in those openings anything that looks quite like this. And so keep this in mind too, how this opens. And in fact, this idea of fading into images and shots, and scenes, in particular the use of the image of Laura Palmer. Let's keep this in mind. Perhaps there might or might not be a type of echo or similar type of arrangement of images that we might see welcome us in terms of future or subsequent, say, episodes or parts of Twin Peaks stories as we go down the road. Perhaps. But in any event, I think this has a wonderful, say, welcome ring to it. And again, too, it goes back to I think a familiar thing that we've spoken about before, which is the use of things that are familiar yet different. And so we have this familiarity of scenes or images and iconic notions from Twin Peaks, the outline of the woods and the trees, the curtained red curtains and the pattern on the floor, the image of Laura Palmer, and the font that's used. And these things are very welcoming and very familiar, and yet it's arranged in a way that seems different and seems unique and wholly unto itself. And so similar yet different. It's already at the very start welcoming us in this fashion when we start Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces. Fascinating. So now we're going right into the thick of things. And so let's go to the first missing piece, which is the shot of Chet Desmond and Sam Stanley exiting the place, Deer Meadow, after having examined the body of Teresa Banks. They're outside. And in the film, we understand that Sam Stanley thinks it's late, but then Chet Desmond kind of corrects him and says, it's time to get something to eat. And so that's the bit we get in the film. And it goes right to the diner. However, here in the missing pieces, we get a further extension of the scene. So immediately after this exchange, we still get further dialogue. What I love about this, I love a number of things about this, which is, first of all, Sam Stanley mentions how he didn't realize how many hours had passed, because they had been working, examining the body. If you remember in the film, there was a shot of the clock saying 4:30, but now it's close to many hours have passed. But Sam Stanley remarks how he didn't realize how much time had passed, which I love this comment because it suggests again the idea of time, the fluidity or a passage of time, and how we perceive time, and how the perception and fluidity of time is such an important concept of Twin Peaks, how time acts, how time seems to intersect or contradict, or we can perceive or feel time differently depending on our perspective or vantage point. It's expressed even in this seemingly throwaway comment by Sam Stanley, which I love. I love this. And I love, too, the further sort of antagonism or nuanced antagonism, or the way in which Chet Desmond seems to be very non-responsive to Sam Stanley. And there's this this moment of silence between them. Now, that could be a sign of just the way Chet Desmond operates. He has his own MO. as the saying goes here in this scene. Or it could be this moment where Chet Desmond is unable to mask his maybe antagonism or dislike of Sam Stanley. If you recall, one of the interesting things about Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me was this great dynamic relationship between Chet Desmond and Sam Stanley. And it recalls, if we remember conversations there, it also recalls too how Dale Cooper, Special Agent Dale Cooper, feels about Sam Stanley. We may get a little bit of that a little bit later in the missing pieces, but recall too a comment that Dale Cooper made in the pilot, way back in the pilot, about working or not wanting to work with Sam Stanley, as the case may be. But in any event, yes, Chet Desmond may have his own MO. That could be the case, or maybe he just doesn't like Sam Stanley. That may be the case. Or maybe it's a mixture of the two. That may be the case. But time certainly flies, and we didn't realize how many hours had passed, and now it's time to eat. And now they're walking off, presumably to their next place or the next destination, which is again that place to eat. So again, even in this little chunk, this mini piece, as it were, there is, I think, a lot to chew on, and a lot of food for thought, and a further embellishment of the characters, Chet Desmond and Sam Stanley, even in these seemingly throwaway moments. But in fact, the more one thinks about it, the more one realizes that they are perhaps not so throwaway, but they are further revelations about character, as well as further revelations or illuminations about the world and allure and themes and concerns of Twin Peaks, the universe, such as the idea of the passage of time, such as antagonism between and among characters, such as contradictions. Is it late or is it early? Is or is it not? And that kind of thing. So already we're getting a whole heck of Twin Peaks from the very get-go in these missing pieces. And it goes right into the next scene, it goes right to the next missing piece, which is Hap's Diner. And so we got in the film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, a shot of the exterior of Hap's Diner, and then a quick shot of Chet Desmond and Sam Stanley talking to someone, say hello, say goodbye to Jack, suggesting that they should talk to Irene inside. So here, however, in this missing piece, we get a little bit more of the drive up to the front of the diner, parking the car, and the two agents getting out. And then we get a little bit more of this exchange between Chet Desmond and Sam Stanley on one hand, and this elderly gentleman say goodbye to Jack, say hello good to Jack, say goodbye to Jack. And so here we get, and also we see a number of other people that are in this little space, this little alcove type of space that is embellished by the sound of the sparks, and a man sitting to one side working on a light that seems to be flashing in and out with, again, the spark sound. And there's another bearded man as well on the other side, sort of flanking, the two of them flanking this elderly man standing there. And so the talk is between essentially this elderly man and Desmond and Stanley. And so a number of things emerge here that we didn't get in the final film, such as Hap, what happened to Hap, and he didn't suffer. And also, the FBI, had come here before on a certain occasion. And then also more investigation, discussion about Teresa Banks, how she worked at Hap's. Did she have any friends or not? Also, there's an interesting detail about how, according to Jack here, about how he'd been asked questions about Teresa Banks by Sheriff Cable of Deer Meadow Sheriff's Department. So that's a reminder of the investigation mechanism that did go on. And it is a reminder, again, we're not privy necessarily to the investigative prowess of Sheriff Cable and company, but this is a little echo of that, or perhaps a suggestion that, yes, indeed, some investigation did occur. How successful it was or not, again, we have no way of knowing. We can make some reasonable good guesses, of course, but that's interesting to hear a little bit about Sheriff Cable in action, as well as the history of Hap's death. He didn't suffer, visits from the FBI before, the sparks of light, how's the light going? Why is the light being repaired like this? Who is Jack? Who is this person in the corner? Who's the other person with the beard in the corner? Is this the last time we're going to see someone in Twin Peaks with a very prominent beard like this. Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps we'd seen people with very prominent facial hair, even in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. So, in any event, is there a connection, or is this a wild coincidence? Your guess is as good as mine, but of course, then it goes into the discussion about Irene and the suggestion about how the two of them should talk to Irene. And it's a night, etc. And so this is again going into what we had seen in the final film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. So, but then when the two of them go into the room, then we get a quick shot of Jack talking to this guy working on the light. Again, this is something we didn't see, or the extensions of which we didn't see. So I think this has this idea of a scene or a part that we had seen in Twin Peaks, the film, or Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but extended in a way that I think further provides sustenance to the world, gives background to Hap, gives background to this person. We understand his name, Jack. Say hello to Jack, say goodbye to Jack. Gives a little clue or maybe some curiosity beats about who these other people are in the room. And the like, and also some interesting maybe background information about Sheriff Cable, as well as again reminding us about this is an investigation about the death of Teresa Banks, so the murder of Teresa Banks, and I like this idea of the investigative engine going forward. So a lot of things happening in this missing piece here involving say hello to Jack or say goodbye to Jack. And then the missing pieces continue on with a shot of the outside of the diner, what appears to be morning. Yeah, so it's morning. I did that on purpose because there's a little bit of hesitation between the two of them, at least on the part of Sam Stanley after Irene comes out when he says good morning. Because again, it's to remember that they've been working all the way through the hours, examining Teresa Banks's body, and without sleep, they went straight to Hap's Diner, and now the idea is now morning. And as Chet Desmond explains to us, or explains to Sam Stanley there, I should go see the sunrise and visit Fat Trout's trailer park. And I love this exchange too because it reminds us about how Sam Stanley is still, what's the expression, a little bit wet behind the ears, in the sense that he still is trying to catch up with this world of what's going on. If we recall from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the idea of the blue rose. What is the blue rose? There's a lot of talk in code, especially when Gordon Cole gave them their brief in terms of the language of Lil, and there was a lot of code speak that was involved. And so I like this exchange here because Sam Stanley is asking, is this another code speak, that kind of thing? And he says, no, I mean exactly what I'm saying. And I like this too because it's a reminder of the code world of the FBI, at least Gordon Cole's FBI, and also things may or may not be how they are, or things may not be what they seem, and then but just sometimes things are exactly what they are, and that's the explanation that Chet Desmond gives, which I love. I love that idea of being on edge and that contradiction, and also at the same time things are sometimes what they actually sound like they are. And that's too an interesting little character beat because it shows perhaps yet more of a gulf or distance between Sam Stanley's thinking and Chet Desmond's thinking. You already get a sense of Sam Stanley being very almost hyper on edge, curious, perhaps overly curious, and then Chet Desmond being very cool and very subdued, just knowing exactly what to do and what to say in that very laid-back manner, that wonderful Chris Isaak manner. And then another aspect too about how this is outside, again, in the early morning hours, and then Irene comes out with the cigarette and the kind of Irene look, which I love, and as she's going to her car, and they're going to their car. There's some people also standing on the corner step outside in the wide shot of the outside of the diner, Hap. So a lot of things going on here. So I love this. I love the transformation from night or the dark hours to the early morning sunrise hours as well. I like that transition, and it reminds us too that it goes right into, or we understand that they're going to go right to Fat Trout Trailer Park and the scene involving Carl Rodd in the film. So I like that transition. This adds a nice transition from the darkness of the hours when they went to Haps, and then now the the lightness of the early morning hours when they go to visit Fat Trout Trailer Park. So I like that this is the interim moment. So another great missing piece. Okay, we go into the next missing piece, which is the fight between Sheriff Cable and Agent Desmond outside the office there, and we have the sheriff. We have sheriff, of course, there, and we have Deputy Cliff and the receptionist. Excuse me. They're standing by as a type of gallery, really supporting Sheriff Cable on, and we got the wonderful moment, which you got in a hint of course, when he went to Sheriff Cable's office earlier in the film, of the Cable bends steel. You actually get a sense of that. It's really wonderful. And so it's like the photo come to life, in a manner of speaking, which I love too, as a kind of interesting thing about Twin Peaks, the idea of photos coming to life. Perhaps the most iconic photo of which being that of Laura Palmer. One can argue that the photo of Laura Palmer in a way comes to life. And I like how even in this quick, seemingly comic moment, a photo of Sheriff Cable, we get a hint of bending steel, actually in a sense comes to life. We actually see him bending steel, but in any event, or the bar anyway. So this is of course the scene, or maybe an extension or a part where there is tension between Deer Meadow Sheriff's Department and the FBI over the control of the body of Teresa Banks. And so here we have actual the battle over such control. And we have interesting details here that emerge, so including the fight itself. But before that, the sheriff, Deer Meadow side, seems to be egging them on. And Deputy Cliff makes a reference to, try that, you little monkey, which I think is a kind of a, it's an insult, but it's an interesting way to use an insult, right? Because of course we know that monkeys, and David Lynch films in particular, David Lynch works in particular, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, there's a connection. And so whether that's on purpose or not, again, your guess is as good as mine, but we do see the prominence of monkeys. We do see the prominence of monkeys in a work like Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. So it's interesting we get that reference to a monkey here. And you notice too a little bit of the reaction to that comment by Agent Chet Desmond. He kind of looks. He probably is maybe, is he looking just because he's insulted by it, or is he looking because he's reminded perhaps of something that has to do with the monkey and the Blue Rose? Remember, after all, Chet Desmond knows more about the Blue Rose cases than, say, Sam Stanley does. And so maybe that might have something to do with how he reacted to this comment about the monkey, or maybe not. Again, your guess is as good as mine. But also here to the idea of the badge, removing the badge, making the reference, calling Chet Desmond J. Edgar as a type of course, reference to his role in the FBI, but also as a type of insult as well. And that's what Sheriff Cable does, is they're removing the badge and removing their badges. And of course, Chet Desmond does the same. He'll remove his as well. And as he goes over and tries to pick up the bar, Sheriff Cable gives him kind of an underhanded first shot and knocks him to the ground, of course, but then that initiates the fight. And as we see, I love the way in which Sheriff Cable has his kind of almost kind of gliding stance, and while Desmond has his fisticuffs type of stance too, like arms underhanded like this, which I like that difference of style, or differing of styles. And then slowly but surely, while Sheriff Cable and company seem to think that they have the upper hand, slowly but surely they realize, after a few blows here and there, to the direct and quite brutal blows to the face, as well as more of the physical action, we see that indeed Chet Desmond has the upper hand, and he is quite a formidable foe indeed. And this one's coming from J. Edgar, again throwing the J. Edgar epithet back at him. And by the end of it, we realize who now has control. Very proficient of you, Agent Desmond. So this type of scene, I think, shows again more of Sheriff Cable and company. Shows the reaction the receptionist and also Deputy Cliff, and we might see Deputy Cliff again later, maybe not, who knows. We also see the prowess of Chet Desmond. Again, he's a very physical agent, as well as having his own MO, as Sam Stanley attests to, as well as seeing Sam Stanley, the other agent there we had seen with the cap that we'd seen in the film itself, with a little bit more screen time as well. So they are looking on, the onlookers as well. And then the fight, the actual clash between these two forces, which you'd seen the great tension between the Sheriff's Department, Deer Meadow Sheriff's Department on the one hand, and the FBI on the other. Well, here we have the ultimate, say, showdown between these two forces in the form of this hand-to-hand combat between these two men. So it's and also it has a type of comic tone to it, as well as showing photos come to life, legends come to life, as it were, as well as further dimensions into the backgrounds of these characters, not least of which being, of course, that of Agent Desmond. So again, another very kind of famous or mythical scene for a lot of reasons, a lot of comic action as well, and also a lot of hints, possible hints as well. References to the monkey, references to images come to life, photos come to life, as well as, of course, a reminder too about this is all about what happens to the body of Teresa Banks, and that's at the heart of this tragedy, the Deer Meadow tragedy. So another really great and classic missing piece. And then the next missing piece is that of a shot of the FBI. Insignia and the sign, and then scroll to the side, and we see standing in a seemingly nondescript doorway, seemingly rubbing against the doorway and doing push-ups against the doorway or something, that of none other than Special Agent Dale Cooper. And he seems to be talking to someone inside the room. We don't see who's inside the room, but we see the doorway. We see not sheriff, but we see Special Agent Dale Cooper, and he is talking to Diane. And he is remarking about Diane's appearance, and it's Thursday. And he makes some very interesting comments here. So first of all, it's a reminder of the relationship between Cooper and Diane, at least that relationship as manifest in what we've seen in Twin Peaks series seasons 1 and 2, as well as Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, to the extent that we do see Special Agent Dale Cooper and his interactions with Diane in the film. So it is a continuation of that. But here, in a manner of speaking, we do get Diane in the same space, although we don't see Diane. So there's a further interesting angle in which Diane is presented. We'll see how, if and how at all, this dynamic might be further, shall we say, maybe examined or not, as the case may be, as we get to subsequent stories of Twin Peaks. But for the time being, here we have an interaction, a very close interaction between Cooper and Diane. Now, a number of things, though, to keep in mind, which are, I think, really, really cool. I mean, everything about this scene is cool, but Cooper seems to be, he's very chipper. He's very in good spirits, perhaps because he's talking with Diane. There might be a sense of, I don't know, flirtation between the two of them. Maybe that flirtation is unilateral. Maybe it's bilateral. I'm not sure. We don't see Diane's expressions, of course, but we might get a sense of what Diane is feeling as she is engaging with this conversation with Cooper. But we don't hear any voice. We don't see anything. So we're not quite sure how Diane feels about Cooper per se, but we have a sense that at least Cooper seems to be very much in good spirits during this time, and almost in a way complimenting her, maybe even flirting with her, who knows. But it's an interesting dynamic all the same. And also that in the tail end of this, we see how he refers to himself as again, another victory for the dashing Dale Cooper. So he refers to himself as dashing and debonair, and the idea being that he's describing himself in ways that make the suggestion that he's dashing and handsome and the like. And so here we have a sense of Dale Cooper, an interesting dynamic in terms of his personality. He seems almost And I love Dale Cooper. I mean, I'm a huge Dale Cooper fan, and I mean, what I'm about to say, I don't think is anything necessarily negative against the character, but he seems very almost to the point of being almost quite narcissistic. Now, I don't know if this is just a show of narcissism because he's talking with Diane maybe in a really good mood, perhaps even very just on a casual way, and very innocently flirting with her. Who knows? But he does seem to be somewhat narcissistic, again, in this playful manner. Now, whether this might be taken to be a kind of negative connotation on his character or not, again, we'll see. It does remind us, too, about how Dale Cooper in the series did describe himself as being somewhat imperfect as a character, although people like Audrey told him, that the problem with him is that he's perfect, if you recall. I'm paraphrasing that, but is Dale Cooper a perfect human being, or perhaps does he have imperfections or flaws? And perhaps are those flaws something to do with how he views himself, and perhaps he views himself in this type of narcissistic way that is perhaps something to do with the potential for his undoing. Who knows? Who knows? Or is this a innocent flirtation, just an innocent comment that is just part of the echo or part of the nature of the Cooper-Diane relationship? Again, or maybe it's a mixture of the two. Who knows? But in any event, it can be seen in this maybe interesting reading into Cooper's character, and or it can be seen in this very innocent exchange between these two. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind, too, is the game that they're playing is he's looking in the room. We don't know what the details are of the room. We've never seen this room, at least I don't think so. But he is looking, we look at him looking into the room, and he's trying to guess what she has done differently in the room. Has she changed some aspect of the room? Has she shifted a piece of furniture? But no, he guesses that she has moved the clock, according to him, 12 inches to the left, right? I think I got that right, 12 inches to the left. So that is a huge, I mean, I think if I heard that correctly, if I'm remembering correctly, 12 inches, that's quite a large, that's not insignificant. I mean, it's not minute, I guess. It's certainly an amount of distance or space that is not unnoticeable. But the fact that he is able to recognize that, I think that shows his powers of observation and recall of detail, which is, again, kudos to Dale Cooper. And also, too, he's talking about a clock, so he's talking about time. Again, time in Twin Peaks. Whenever there's a reference to clocks or times in Twin Peaks or days, Thursday, here's reference. That's something that may or may not be significant. Also, the game that they're playing is what is the same, but what is different. So something is the same, but there's one detail that's off. There's one detail that's different. And oh my goodness, if that isn't a great, say, metaphor for Twin Peaks, I don't know what is, right? Because after all, there are a lot of things about Twin Peaks that are indications of things that are the same, that feel the same, but that are off. Doppelgangers, things that are people that might look familiar to us, but in fact are completely different. They're different people, or spaces, or rooms, or maybe routines that feel like things that we've done before, but maybe repeated action that we've done before, but they feel a little bit different. Maybe a little detail that's off. That, in fact, maybe a little detail that's so off it might change the trajectory of things in a way that is irreparable or something. Who knows? So things that feel similar, little things that are the same except for a little detail, such as the shifting of the position of the clock. So anyway, this is the missing piece between Cooper and Diane. And then the next missing piece is Dale Cooper talking to Sam Stanley in what it appears to be, or what we can assume to be, Sam Stanley's quarters, or his place with a lot of trinkets and a lot of shells in the background, a little humming noise. We're not sure where it's coming from immediately, but we see the glance from Dale Cooper to something to the side there, and we see this vat of white liquid with something stirring there. It's almost like something it's like a bathtub of white liquid that seems almost like something out of a love scene from the David Lynch film Eraserhead or something. But very, very interesting detail. I'm not sure what that is, but in any event, here we have some discussion between Sam Stanley and Special Agent Dale Cooper. the way in which the discussion goes is, it sounds like this is where they are talking about what happened to Agent Desmond, because perhaps at this point Agent Desmond had disappeared, and so now we understand perhaps that this is a scene where Cooper is investigating what happened to Special Agent Desmond, and so part of that is asking Sam Stanley what happened. So Sam Stanley talks about what his final exchange was with Chet Desmond, asking him to take the body back, drive back to Portland, 105 miles, and that was that. And then so there's also the little mention of Lil, but of course Dale Cooper stops him. He understands what the Blue Rose is, and no one explained it to Sam Stanley, and neither will Dale Cooper. So there's this wall of secrecy that even Dale Cooper seems not to be willing to break for the benefit of Sam Stanley. And we get a little bit of irritation expressed on the part of Dale Cooper vis-a-vis Sam Stanley when Sam Stanley goes over and talks about the machine that he used to crack the Whitman case, if you recall. And as he goes over, we see a little bit of irritation on Dale Cooper's face there. And again, it reminds us too about how much ill feeling perhaps that Dale Cooper seems to have. Again, remember his comments in the pilot about how he didn't want to work with Sam Stanley here. So even as Sam Stanley gives Dale Cooper the glad hand, Sam Stanley, if you ever need his assistance. But of course, that, at least in the stories that we saw in the series, that never came to be. But part of the use of the machine, of course, is to reveal the information of the investigation into their examination of the body of Teresa Banks, the idea of the letter found under the nail. And we get a close-up of the letter, both a close-up and then a kind of red tint close-up here, the T. So again, more aspects of the investigation of the killing of Teresa Banks, which is then relayed to Dale Cooper, as well as more information about Sam Stanley, the vat of white goo, and 105-mile distance from Deer Meadow to Portland, and also the irritation that Dale Cooper feels. So again, character beats that are revealed, some aspects of the investigation that are given to Dale Cooper in terms of information. A reminder too that this is also about the disappearance of Chet Desmond. They didn't find the ring too, which is another detail. And I think it further compounds the potential significance of what the ring is, or what the ring means, or what the ring has to offer. It may or may not have something to do with the Blue Rose. Who knows? Maybe Dale Cooper already knows what the ring is or what it's about. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? The fact that it's mentioned really quickly, that's also very interesting in and of itself. But anyway, Sam Stanley, what a character he is indeed.